समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The geopolitical churn is so dramatic that one can barely keep pace. The Afghanistan Taliban's foreign minister is in India for an 8-day visit. This even as Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif says that the chances of war with India are real. Khawaja Asif is, of course, known for being a loose cannon, but it is a fact that in the last few days, tensions between India and Pakistan have soared. All of this is coinciding with, like I said, the Taliban foreign minister coming to India for an 8-day visit, and of course is coinciding with Trump's unveiling of the first phase of his Gaza peace plan that has been welcomed by Prime Minister Modi, among others. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we look at the latest absurd speech from Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif, making a preposterous claim of how India was only united under Aurangzeb, and then going on in an interview to Pakistan's Sama TV to claim that the chances of war with India, according to him, are very real. Now, even as India gives a fierce warning to Pakistan on terrorism as well as on the military build-up near the Sir Creek area, you can see the images of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in Bhuj there, comes an interesting twist in the tale. The Afghanistan Taliban's foreign minister is in India for an 8-day visit. An 8-day visit. This is the first such diplomatic visit after some sort of tentative outreach between India and the Taliban. And it is coinciding with the fact that India has opposed Donald Trump on the Bagram Air Base. In this position, India finds itself on the same side as not just the Taliban, China, and Russia, but even on the same side as Pakistan. There's the image of the minister as he arrives in Delhi. There are all kinds of twists and turns. There's Trump celebrating the successful unveiling of the first phase of his Gaza plan, something that was welcomed by Prime Minister Modi in a tweet that also praised Benjamin Netanyahu. How do we read this high-level visit by the Afghanistan foreign minister at a time when there is escalating rhetoric from Pakistan and India's army chief, India's defense minister, India's air chief? None of them have minced any words as well. Let me introduce two very distinguished experts on the program today. Veteran diplomat Ambassador Vivek Katju is with us. Thank you very much, sir. And also joining us is former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps in the Kashmir Valley, General Hasnain. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. I want to start by playing out Khawaja Asif's latest absurd rant, not to platform him, but to actually understand what's happening. On Pakistan television every day, there is talk of a possible war with India, possible war with India. Why are its ministers going on record with this claim? Pakistan's defense minister is the latest high-ranking public official to say this. This alongside some other absurd comments on India under Aurangzeb and so on. We listen to that just for amusement. But then we'll join the dots between this statement of Khawaja Asif and India's Afghanistan outreach. Take a look.
अगर आप तारीख में जाएं तो हिंदुस्तान एक रियासत की हैसियत से एक फॉर वेरी ब्रीफ पीरियड एक इकाई रहा है, एक यूनिट रहा है। और वो औरंगजेब के यानी 18वीं सदी के बिल्कुल शुरू में पहली दहाई के अंदर बदख्शां से लेके बंगाल तक और नीचे राजकुमारी तक हिंदुस्तान कभी भी एक मुल्क नहीं रहा, कभी भी एक मुल्क नहीं रहा। एक टाइम आया था 540 रियासतें थी सब कॉन्टिनेंट में। हमने तो मुल्क बनाया है ना, हमने तो इसको, वो तो कहते हैं ना हिंदुस्तान की तारीख है, ये है वो है फलान ढमका। मैं ये आप बताना क्या चाह रहा हूं कि हमने तो एक नजरिया, मैंने अपने ट्वीट में भी कहा है कि हमने ये एक वाहिद रियासत है जो एक नजरिए की बुनियाद के ऊपर जो है अल्लाह के नाम के ऊपर पाकिस्तान का मतलब क्या लाया उस पर उस वो जज्बा जो है ना वो आप देखें कि वो कितनी हमारे में झगड़े चल रहे थे मैं सारी पूरी कौम जो है ऊपर से लेके नीचे तक नॉर्थ से साउथ तक जो है वो 4-5 दिनों में जो है उसका तो ये चीज़ें जो है बड़ी मैटर करती हैं कौमों के अंदर जो है ये मेरा ख्याल है कि अगर अल्लाह ना करे कोई इसकी ऐसी सिचुएशन राइज हो चांसेस उसके हैं उसको मैं बिल्कुल डिनाई नहीं करता अगर राइज होगी तो अल्लाह हमें पहले से ज़्यादा बड़ी फतह देगा इंशाल्लाह.
Let's go to the operative bit, which is the last comment, and ignore his spurious commentary on Aurangzeb in India. I'll start with you, Ambassador Katju. I want to look at Khawaja Asif's comments also in the larger context of the geopolitical churn and the first visit of its kind by Afghanistan Taliban's foreign minister. He's here for not 1 day or 2, but 8 days. Right? What is actually going on here? It is so hard to keep pace. It's a very fast-changing world. It's Trump's age, and we're all, pivoting around it. How do you see what's happening, Ambassador Katju?
Well, first, permit me a sentence on what Khawaja Asif said about Aurangzeb, etc. I think he's suffering from selective memory. Pakistan itself was formed on the basis of the two-nation theory, and he forgets that in 1971, that theory was smashed to smithereens with the formation of an independent Bangladesh. And that is something that he should reflect upon. Now, as far as his comment is concerned on the chances of war, I don't think Khawaja Asif is an authoritative spokesperson of the Pakistani government or the Pakistani establishment. I, for one, find his comments vastly amusing and I don't take them very seriously. If Shehbaz Sharif was to make a comment of this nature, or Asim Munir, I would pay far greater attention. That doesn't mean that we should brush all this under the carpet, because the Pakistanis are under a state of some tension. I think they have recently had a bad terrorist incident in which they lost 11 security personnel, including a lieutenant colonel and a major, fighting the TTP. So that itself would somewhat unhinge Khawaja Asif. The larger geopolitical picture, let's keep Gaza out of it, because I don't think Gaza plays directly into the situation which is in South Asia. It's a separate issue. But within South Asia, what is happening between India and Afghanistan is something that should have happened some time ago, and the Pakistanis are naturally very sensitive to this, but I doubt whether they are terribly surprised.
Let's expand on that, General Hasnain. Maybe you share Ambassador Katju's belief that Khawaja Asif is to be ignored. But if you were to look at Pakistan media, which we only do as a professional sort of necessity, not otherwise, there are politicians coming on every evening on Pakistan television talking about their own military's build-up. This is the Pakistan media reporting it, right? Not us. That's point one. Point two, we have seen their military build-up near Sir Creek. Point three, we have seen India's warning on it. Now we see this very important from a tactics strategic lens, the arrival of Amir Khan Muttaqi, Afghanistan Taliban's foreign minister, here for 8 days. In the middle of all this is Trump wanting control of the Bagram airbase in Afghanistan, and India actually siding with Russia, China, and even Pakistan, not just the Taliban, in saying, no, you can't have it. Right? In fact, using the word unacceptable in the recent joint statement. General Hasnain.
So, Barkha, thank you, first of all, for inviting me for your show. We'll come to the Bagram airbase issue separately, subsequently, perhaps. Maybe I'll touch upon it just now. But I'm sure Ambassador Katju will have a lot to say on that. He knows that area, he's lived there a lot. But let me start with Khawaja Asif. And I think I'm also tempted to join in to say that actually Khawaja Asif is irrelevant. And therefore, making statements from time to time adds to his relevance. Or at least his perception is that it adds to his relevance. And similarly, as you say, lots of other people in Pakistan keep contributing to that perceptional build-up because they know that they are irrelevant. It is the Pakistan army which controls and handles everything, but they have outsourced that to all these motley group of people to keep talking about it. So that's the way you should look at Khawaja Asif. But that interesting observation, he said, कि हमने तो देश बनाया है. But you should equally remember that आपने देश तोड़ा भी है. ठीक है, टूटा है आपका देश, आपने जो बनाया वो 24 साल के अंदर टूट भी गया. और जिस तरह से चीजें चल रही, the way it's going at the moment, it's very likely that you will destroy it into 4 or 5 parts. So this is something which Khawaja Asif has to remember. India, on the other hand, despite all its vociferous tendencies or trends and things like that, still remains one nation. And it's a secular, pluralistic nation which is respected for its ideology all over the world. So that is one aspect. The visit of the Afghan foreign minister is a very, very interesting development at this stage. I think the Taliban realizes, and they must have studied the Indian pattern for the last 4 or 5 years or even before that, and realized that their interest definitely lies with India. You know, just like we look at the strategic depth in many ways of Pakistan attempting to get a strategic depth, here you find Afghanistan's strategic depth is actually India, right? In many ways, it's support for Afghanistan. On Bagram Air Base, again, we are seeing eye to eye completely. We don't want this area to be conflict-ridden. We don't want Americans set up here to come in and already upset the apple cart, which already is in a state of being upset here. The new great game is going in a very big way. We don't want one more element to come in here and upset the entire thing again. This is one of the most sensitive areas of the world. We all know that the Pamir area is the most sensitive area of the world, virtually considered the center of the world. And cross-cutting trends of technology, of religion, of ideology, of geopolitics, everything seems to combine and meet out here. So adding one more element to it, only, and that to a superpower, obviously contributes to that, the potential of so much more turbulence. So I think this is a very good time for consultation. He's coming in here. 8 days, perhaps Ambassador Katju will explain what he's going to do for 8 days here. I really don't know. But definitely a meeting with the Indian establishment, both the diplomatic establishment, the political establishment, and I must admit, I hope it will also be with the military setup here. We used to train a lot of Afghan cadets in India. Lots of Afghan officers used to train with the Indian Army. So we have a fairly good footprint there already among them. Many of them are still very much part of the Taliban army. We have used soft power to a great extent in Afghanistan, and Ambassador Katju, as being an ambassador there, one of the foremost ambassadors there in the early part of the Taliban, when the Taliban went away at that particular time, he will be able to tell us much more. Where do the meeting grounds actually come? Where are our meeting interests? Let's look at that.
So let me bring in Ambassador Katju. Indeed, it is puzzling how somebody has time for an 8-day visit, but it's also the first of its kind. India has taken its time in very tentative outreach with the Taliban. Ambassador Katju, you have been on the inside track of that outreach. I want you to talk about from then to now, this moment. India is still grappling a little bit with the recognition of the flag. But I think that these are just now formalities. Obviously, in this new world order, India's recognition, I would imagine, of the Taliban government is now complete. I think, I don't know how you see it, and what impact is that going to have on all the other equations? Because we've also seen Pakistan, China, and the Taliban government having their own meetings, having their own little mini conclaves. So explain what's going on to us.
Look, Barkha, permit me a few minutes. I had argued in early 2017 that we should start talking to the Taliban. That was 4.5 years before Kabul fell to the Taliban. The reasons why I did that was because I was seeing that the Republic was fraying and that the Taliban were coming in. Also, had the feeling that anyone in Kabul would, after a couple of years, come to odds with Pakistan and they would look towards India. So it was the interregnum of 2 years that concerned me, and I was confident that we'll be able to take that in our stride. I think we did the right thing in closing the mission, not because there was worry about the Taliban causing any insecurity, but because in those unsettled conditions, the Pakistanis could have played a very devious game and endangered lives, and therefore I think the government's decision to close the mission at that stage was correct. Now, thereafter, I have not been on the inside track, quite far from it. I live a somewhat isolated life and I try to follow events in Afghanistan. It's a country in which I've dealt with professionally and I have an enduring interest in it. Now, in the last 4.5 years, a few things are apparent. The first is that the Taliban are there to stay. Naturally, there will be difficulties within themselves, but they don't have any real opposition from the outside. Two, I doubt whether the Taliban are going to change their theological orientations anytime soon. Yes, they have not, for various reasons, and I don't see this happening, imposed the kind of Sharia practices publicly that they had during the time of Mullah Umar in the 1990s. On gender issues, they've been very tough, and I doubt whether they're going to change that anytime soon. The Amirul Momineen Hebatullah seems to be very firm in his mind on these policies. Now, which brings me to the third point. As far as the Taliban are concerned, they had indicated to us informally for a long period of time that India should not consider themselves as Pakistan's puppets. They said they had compulsions which required and necessitated their cooperation with Pakistan, but that they had their own interests and that we should keep in mind that their interests and Pakistani interests did not coincide completely. And that's now become quite apparent. It's not only the TTP, but it's also because of a Pakistani desire to control Kabul's India policy, and no Afghan government in history has allowed that. Now, which brings me to the points that you mentioned, which are the immediate points. I have argued that we should, as far as diplomatic recognition is concerned, we should await an international consensus, that we should not be like Russia. And I've even argued that we should not proceed on the basis of what the Chinese and the Pakistanis are doing, like sending an ambassador. I think we should have an embassy. We call it an embassy, no longer this technical development mission, but an embassy, and that should be headed by a senior diplomat holding the rank of a charge d'affaires. Also, that we should allow the Taliban to open a mission here and head it with the charge d'affaires. Now, the question of the flag, as you say, is a non-issue. It is for the de facto authorities in Kabul to decide on their flag. If their flag is, they change their flag, so be it. I don't think we should try to dictate that.
So
And
then
we
why
should
not?
make
So
it-
then why not go the whole hog and send an ambassador as well? Why
because
stop
I
short?
want no, because I don't think, because I don't want a mistake to be made as was made by the Pakistanis, the Saudis, and the UAE. I don't want to take sides at this time. I would suggest that our interests lie in substantive movement in Afghanistan, not in these formalities, because the formalities can get you into trouble. I mean, let's take BRICS, for example. BRICS is an important organization. The Chinese and the Russians have recognized it. The Brazilians and the South Africans, I doubt whether they'll go that way anytime soon. So I don't think that we should irk the West by showing that we are taking sides in Afghanistan. Let's do it substantively. Substantively, we should open up on visas, medical visas, on education visas. We should open up on training. We should send more humanitarian assistance. We should have projects. And of course, if they want cooperation in the security area, we should do that. In all these issues, one last point, Barkha, in all these issues, we should keep our security interests into consideration. For example, if we're giving visas, we should vet the people we are giving visas to closely. But we should not do what we did in 2021, close the doors. That caused an enormous amount of bitterness, because there were, for example, scholars, Afghan scholars here, who had only a few months left for their PhD programs to conclude, and they were not allowed to come. We had people who were undergoing medical treatment here. They were not allowed to come. I was told by a senior Afghan of the old system of the Republic. He told me, he said, Vivek, it's a strange situation. He knew me well enough to call me Vivek. And he said, Vivek, you know, it's a strange situation that I recommend a visa to Pakistan and they honor it. But when I do the same to your people with whom I have very close contact, they cannot give a visa. So we shouldn't make that mistake anymore.
Okay.
Because we had enormous goodwill in Afghanistan and we've lost some and we need to regain that. So I'm happy that the Taliban minister has come. This is a very good decision, a realistic decision. But we've got to balance all these things out.
And talking about the balancing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short, but just want to bring in General Hasnain. Talking about the balancing, and Ambassador Katju makes the point that look, you've got to go through it incrementally. Don't make a mistake. Don't go the whole hog right now with an ambassador, but allow the Taliban to open an embassy here, reopen your embassy in Kabul, and so on. Bagram is a test of this balancing. Trump has got somewhat obsessed with it. And India has found itself on the same side as Russia, China, Taliban, and even Pakistan. At least Pakistan is stating that it opposes this. And in fact, we have a recent joint statement that India has endorsed, where it has used the word, let me in fact find that statement, it has used the word unacceptable. It has in fact used the word unacceptable and said that it is an unacceptable attempt to deploy military infrastructure in Afghanistan. Not naming Bagram, but it's quite clear what the reference is. So I wanted to come in on this, Bagram and also the balancing thereof, Trump's moods. Remember, Trump is emboldened right now. If his Gaza peace plan works, he is going to be perhaps even more intolerable in his rhetoric than he's been so far, from an Indian point of view.
From an Indian point of view, definitely, Barkha. I'm not sure that the use of the terminologies in the statement is the absolutely right thing. Perhaps a diplomat.
Which statement? This statement? This statement?
An unacceptable attempt, etc. I mean, it could be perhaps gloved into softer language and convey, just like what Ambassador Katju is saying, that you need to be incremental in your approach to improvement of the relationship with Afghanistan. Similarly, while treating any statements coming out of the United States or our own statements in response as a pushback, always need to be a little more guarded. We don't want to upset the apple cart, because I think everyone does accept till today that whatever has happened with the United States and what the United States is attempting to do with many of our so-called adversaries is essentially transactional. It is not long-term strategic. The testing of the waters has really not taken place, which can substantiate the claim that now this is everything strategic. US-Pakistan relations are cemented and concretized. It's not so. It's still in the making, all this, an improving relationship, etc. A return to the good old days, their partnerships. We need to be a little more circumspect about it and using our words for it. That's one aspect. Second thing is our entire argument and rationale of not having a military presence, external presence in Afghanistan at this stage. It's a sensitive area, as I already mentioned, just at the cost of slight repetition. It is a sensitive area. For the better part of the last 4 years, the United States is already supporting the Taliban in a big way. We are aware. Financially, the Taliban is not independent. It cannot support itself, obviously, by the raising of taxes inside Afghanistan. It can't do it.
So therefore, sorry, I have a question there. So therefore, when the Taliban says no to America for the use of the Bagram airbase, should that no be taken at face value? Will the Taliban be able to resist Trump's pressure on this?
It's a question, I suppose, regionally, if a lot of other countries are pushing back. And in this case, you find China, Pakistan, India itself and the Taliban, all are pushing back on this, not to militarize the area at the moment, too early after 4 years after withdrawal from Afghanistan. And really nothing of that kind has happened, which needs an American presence here. Its American presence is obviously for its own interests, peeping into Central Asia, peeping into the Far East area, having an oversight over the Hindu Ocean, these general areas, keeping an oversight over the Belt and Road Initiative. There are lots and lots of things which are happening around the Palmies, which interest the United States. But the presence of the United States at this time, and particularly in a place like the Bagram Air Base, where it will position its probably its drones and many of its other high-flying aircraft, it will obviously lead to some kind of tension, a disagreement with people, etc. And this is not perhaps the best time to do that. So I think the Taliban will resist it. I'm not sure how far they can resist it. Or are these visits, these engagements with India and with Pakistan, China set up together, are these some things which are looking in terms of compensation for what the American leverage is providing it at the moment? One can't say it's too early for that. But this visit is a very, very interesting visit, which is looking for all kinds of parameters, all kinds of openings. And we should not shut our eyes to that, nor shut our ears to anything which they are looking for.
Okay, let's take final comments. Ambassador Katju, I'd like to come to you. Zooming out for a moment, I want to talk about Trump. And I want to talk about Trump because, as General Hasnain said, the Americans are supporting the Taliban. The Americans are courting the Pakistanis. Trump wants a deal with China even by the end of it all, at least a business deal, if not a strategic deal. And now he has, by all accounts, some reason to gloat further because it looks like he may have brought home the first phase of his Gaza peace plan. Prime Minister Modi has welcomed it and interestingly also commented on Netanyahu's leadership in the same tweet. I want to ask both of you, if this works out for Trump, what does an emboldened Trump mean for our security interests in the region? Trump has always acted like he's emboldened, but if he actually manages to score a peace victory here, what does it mean for geopolitics in our immediate neighborhood? Ambassador Katju, I'll start with you.
Look, first, let me go in order of the questions you've raised. First, as far as the peace plan is concerned, it consists of a large number of parts. He's only succeeded in the first part, which is on refugees and on a ceasefire. There is no chance that Hamas will extinguish itself. So that is the crucial aspect. Once the hostages, I spoke wrongly. Hostages, that is the first part in ceasefire. But beyond that, there is no certainty that this plan will succeed. And I think it's highly premature to believe that the 20-point plan will succeed in its entirety or even a quarter of it. So as far as the emboldening is concerned, it's given him a temporary high. Beyond that, let us wait and see. Point two, permit me a comment on Bagram. You know, in my experience is that when it comes to joint statements, unless you wish to stand out and you feel very strongly, it's best to go along with the consensus. It is what we say here in a joint statement on if Bagram comes up, that will matter more. And at the end of the day, it is for the Taliban to decide. 3, I do not see the Taliban for domestic reasons as well as for regional reasons agreeing to giving Bagram. And Bagram cannot be just given in isolation. I think the general will agree with me that it cannot be sustained without land access, etc. Otherwise, it will be just there and you will have to be catered for by air. Now, that's something that I do not think is going to happen. Point 4, as far as the American support for the Taliban is concerned, what are they doing? They are giving their own financial assets, that is Afghan financial assets, some of which they've appropriated during Biden's time, some of which, I believe $9 million or thereabouts, they give every perhaps week through the UN system. So the Taliban are happy about it, but I don't think that it is such a thing that will persuade Hebatullah to hand over Bagram, which is something that he will not allow. After all, they fought for Americans for 20 years, and they'll hardly give Bagram back. Now, last point. You see Trump's mentality. He said, we gave Bagram for nothing. I say, he is the guy who on February 29, 2020 signed the agreement with the Taliban to withdraw. There was no talk of Bagram, retaining Bagram in that agreement. Barkha, if you recollect, it was a humiliating strategic defeat. Yes, the Americans should have planned their retreat from Kabul and from Afghanistan in a far better manner. But it is always messy to withdraw from a military situation. The general knows this better than I do. My recollection goes back to how the Americans withdrew from Vietnam. So it is messy. And that was what it was. So I don't think that we should think that Trump will be so emboldened now that he'll try to intervene here. My last point. The fact is that Trump has hinted, not only hinted, he's made it apparent that he doesn't want India to play a major role in its Western neighbor. He has made it apparent, and I think we've done a good thing by inviting Muttaqi and telling the Americans that, look, we have a role there, and we will exercise and play that role. The Muttaqi, and there's been obviously a very conscious decision on the part of the Taliban leadership. And we know that there's a little unease within that leadership, inherently, not on account of India, but there is a little unease. The different factors and factions that make up that leadership are not on all fours on power sharing, etc. But they've all agreed that, yes, the opening with India is good. And we should now use this, proceed cautiously. I don't think we should get involved in this thing that India is with the Russians, it's with the Chinese. And that is why what I'm suggesting, that formally we tell the Taliban that, look, it'll be good for you, it'll be good for us, that we don't have diplomatic recognition. But short of that, we'll do everything and take the relationship back to what it was, what traditionally between Kabul and Delhi. Last point. Of course, the Pakistanis will be mad at this.
Exactly.
So be it.
I can imagine Khawaja Asif giving many more interviews, like the loose cannon that he is. But General Hasnain, the closing word to you is this, or the closing question to you is this. Ambassador Katju believes that it isn't so easy for Trump to regain Bagram, that in the very arrival of the foreign minister here is a kind of subtle messaging to the Americans. This isn't so simple. In any case, what you're going to do with the base if you don't have land access, you can't do this. It's an impractical ask. It's an impractical sort of development to be in dread of. Do you agree? Because one thing we have seen about Trump is that he's not a rational entity necessarily, right? He's not acting from rationality. He's acting from whatever whimsical energy that is defining him then. And no, okay, 1 minute. Ambassador Katju, you don't agree? You think there's a method to him? Ambassador Katju,
Absolutely.
What is
His
that method?
Tactics,
what is the method?
Look, his tactics are very wayward, but he's unwavering. As far as this is concerned, it's an absurd thing that we gave it to them for nothing. On cooler reflection, he'll think that, yes, I had to withdraw, I withdrew. Whatever invectives he may have for quote-unquote Sleepy Joe is a separate issue. But he has a very shrewd, calculating mind. It is the mind which emerges from real estate. But it's a calculating mind, and he thinks no one who was so wayward, etc., as you are suggesting, could achieve what he has achieved. It is a stunning political achievement.
I agree with that, but I don't think he's rational. These are two different
Of course,
things.
he is rational. It depends on how you define rationality.
All right. I guess I defined it from my own perspective, which is that he has upended, shaken the jar without any calculation of long-term consequences. He is not interested in long-term consequences. Would you agree with that, sir? Would you agree with that, or not really?
No, I think he has a certain method in his madness. He wants, for example, his Nobel Prize. Nobel Peace Prize.
And now he may get it. And now he may get it.
He may get it, and thank God if he gets it, that might ease some pressure of us. I believe I've written an article where I've said that he is and General Hasnain will agree with me. We come from the same part of the country. He's developed a kundak, and we know this word kundak. He's developed a kundak. If a man says 40 times that I averted a nuclear war, then it can only be kundak. So perhaps kundak may dissipate.
I will.
It is there.
I will change my phrase in deference to you from he's not rational to he has a giant ego. Now,
ego he has.
Okay, all right. So now that ego might feel very emboldened if Gaza and Israel is something he can bring home. And therefore, while Ambassador Katju thinks that Bagram is not going to go through, do you agree with that? And what might be our response if it does go through, if the Taliban does, in a way, give in? We don't know what's going to happen. There are many moving parts here. There's Pakistan's new courtship of Trump. Pakistan had to backpedal on its support for Trump's Gaza plan, at least publicly. So Pakistan's facing a lot of pressure at home. But even so, last word to you, General Hasnain.
There are no strategic, rational outcomes from what Mr. Trump is attempting to do. That is one area which I will differ with Katju Saab. The outcomes they're not impactful there as such. They are more upsetting. They upset the apple cart and nothing more than that. But let me take you on this issue of the Gaza plan. I agree with Ambassador Katju that the Hamas is not going anywhere. And what we are looking at is the first 1/4 of the plan, very correctly brought out by him. This is the ceasefire, the stoppage of, restoration of some kind of aid and things of that nature. The Hamas, for them, defeat is victory. Right? Victimization is victory. Victory is not always to be taken in black and white rational terms. Militarily, there are all forms of victory which take place. The fact that the Hamas has suffered, a second generation, a third generation will rise. It will come in the long term sometime or the other. So to say that this peace plan is something which is hunky-dory to restore Middle East balance, etc., is all hogwash. It's not really linked to Bagram, but to that extent that the perception of Mr. Trump is going to be that he is the most successful statesman in the world, who's brought about this Middle East peace, which no one else could bring at this time.
Correct.
And that is going to tempt him to try and attempt to do the same thing with the Taliban. Now that is an awkwardness.
Exactly. You and I are on the same page about this. I believe this is going to get Trump to poke his nose everywhere, including in our backyard. Ambassador Katju, why are you saying no?
I suspect this will embolden him on Ukraine and Russia. Taliban is small potatoes. Look, at the end of the day, South Asia is small potatoes. Let's not forget that for him.
If it was such small potatoes, he would go on and on and on and on and on about it.
No, but that's connected with the Nobel Peace Prize, which is a big potato. So there's a strange situation here.
No, but he will try and pressurize the Taliban to some extent. I firmly believe the Taliban is not going to get pressurized.
Yeah,
They're not going to get pressurized by Mr. Trump.
That's what I'm saying.
They will hold on, and they're looking for a backing. They're looking for a backing from us. They're looking for a backing from the China. They've already got the Pakistan-China backing. This India backing will also substantially add to the weight as far as their concerns, therefore, for Bagram Air Base. So that is the way one should look at it.
Okay, it is going to be a fascinating 8 days. I don't think we've ever had, Keir Starmer is in India and everybody's only focused on the Taliban foreign minister. So it tells you where the real interest in the story is and where the pivot of power, how this we don't want the great game back in our neighborhood. But the fact is that there is a hard power battle on in the world today. And all of the pieces are moving right now. And we literally do not know how this jigsaw is going to come together again. Thank you, gentlemen. Always learn so much from both of you, Ambassador Katju, General Hasnain. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much. See you again soon. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.